أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور. الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير. ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيها وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير. وللذين كفروا بربهم عذاب جهنم وبئس المصير. إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهي تفور تكاد تميز من الغيظ كلما ألقي فيها فوج سألهم خزنتها ألم يأتكم نذير. قالوا بلى قد جاءنا نذير فكذبنا وقلنا ما نزل الله من شيء إن أنتم إلا في ضلال كبير. وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير. فاعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير. إن الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير. وأسروا قولكم أو اجهروا به إنه عليم بذات الصدور. ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير. هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها وكلوا من رزقه وإليه النشور. أأمنتم من في السماء أن يخسف بكم الأرض فإذا هي تمور. أم أمنتم من في السماء أن يرسل عليكم حاسبا فستعلمون كيف نذير. ولقد كذب الذين من قبلهم فكيف كان نكير. أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن إنه بكل شيء بصير. أمن هذا الذي هو جند لكم ينصركم من دون الرحمن إن الكافرون إلا في غرور. أمن هذا الذي يرزقكم إن أمسك رزقه بل لجوا في عتو ونفور. أفمن يمشي مكبا على وجهه أهدى أمن يمشي سويا على صراط مستقيم. قل هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون. قل هو الذي ذرأكم في الأرض وإليه تحشرون ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين قل إنما العلم عند الله وإنما أنا نذير مبين فلما رأوه زلفة سيئت وجوه الذين كفروا وقيل هذا الذي كنتم به تدعون قل أرأيتم إن أهلكني الله ومن معي أو رحمنا فمن يجير الكافرين من عذاب أليم قل هو الرحمن آمنا به وعليه توكلنا فستعلمون من هو في ضلال مبين قل أرأيتم إن أصبح ماؤكم غورا فمن يأتيكم بماء معين صدق الله العلي العظيم الفاتحة
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبت وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائحي ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترت وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلت وكم من عثار وقيت وكم من مكروه دفعت وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرت. اللهم عظم بلائي وافرط بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وكعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد أملي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بخيانتها ومطالي. يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك ألا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسعده على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا لا أجد مفر مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي. يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي. يا إلهي وسيدي وربي، أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد ما انطوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولهج به لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك. هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته أو تبعد من أدنيت أو تشرد من ناويت أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمت. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة وبشكرك مادحة وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طايعة وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة. ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم. يا ربي وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثور يسير بقاء قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها ضج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته، فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي، صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك، وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك، أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجاء عفوك، فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأزجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك أم كيف يحرقه لهبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفها أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا أم كيف تزجر زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك فباليقين يقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحدك وقضيت به من إخلاد معاندك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت عامن عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبت وكل قبيح أسررت وكل جهل عملت كتمت وأعلنت وأخفيت وأظهرت وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلت أو إحسان فضلت أو بر نشرت أو رزق بسطت أو ذنب تغفر أو خطأ تستر يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بضر ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قوي على خدمتك جوارحي واشتد على العزيمة جوانحي وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبادرين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد ومن كادني فكيد واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وخصم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك وعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأقلني عشرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وضمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تقطع من فضلك رجاء واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعداي يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقام يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل به ما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
बर मुहम्मद वाल मुहम्मद सलावत अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद वाल बोली सुगरा मेरे बाबा याद आ जाते हो तुम अपनी फुरकत मेरे बाबा मुझको तड़पाते हो तुम छोड़ कर मुझको वतन में मेरे बाबा चल दिए टूटी मेरी आस है कैसे सुगरा अब जिए आंखें मेरी ढूंढती है क्यों नहीं आते हो तुम मेरा कासिद भी गया मेरी कहानी भी गई लेके खतवा पस न आए लो निशानी भी गई खत नहीं लिखते हो बाबा और न बुलवाते हो तुम घर है सूना झूला खाली दिल की धड़कन बढ़ गई बाबा क्या समझे हो तुम के मेरी सुगरा मर गई मेरी बीमारी का बाबा ध्यान नहीं लेते हो तुम भाई अकबर भी गए और भाई असगर भी गए रहते मेरे पास तो तीन में यूं दुख जली गर ये सूना खत नहीं है क्यों नहीं आते हो तुम ख्वाब में सुगरान देखा नेज़े पे बाबा का सर रोई सुगरा पीट के सर क्या हुए मेरे पिदर ख्वाब में मुझको रुलाने बाबा आ जाते हो तुम बोली सुगरा मेरे बाबा याद आ जाते हो तुम सल्लल्लाहु अला मुहम्मद व आल मुहम्मद अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद रहिमल्लाहु मन क़रा अल-फ़ातिहा
Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, my respected elders, brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Surah Fatiha is requested for the marhumeen's names listed on the screen and all the marhumeen. Al-Fatiha. Dua Shifa Maries is requested for the names listed on the screen and whoever is ill here and elsewhere around the world. Let's recite together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mustarra iza da'ahu yakshifu su. 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 At this time, I'd like to invite Sayyid Hasan Rizvi to recite tonight's Madlis Muhammad wa ali Muhammad Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين سيدنا والنبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام التحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين المكرمين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There's one question I think that was just recently put up, but before that, just a reminder that we put up this poll last week, trying to figure out what are people interested in as far as once a month on Thursday nights we wanted to try to do something a little different rather than just a discussion or a lecture. So far as the results show, the top thing is that the members are interested in doing some sort of virtual game night, but something that's non-trivia. So they don't want Slido or Kahoot, they want something a little different. So I've been thinking about that, but we'll see. Maybe there are some people who haven't voted yet, so we're going to leave this poll up until the end of the night, and then we'll figure out the results at the end, inshallah. So let's go to the Slido question that was left. So the person's asking, when the 12th Imam, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraju Sharif, at 5 years old, was declared Imam, did anyone doubt this? Did they not have second thoughts about a 5-year-old becoming Imam? Today we know he was the rightful Imam, but my question regards the folks or the people at that time. I guess that's what I mean to say. So part of the question we tried to address last week, right? That there's, a rational sort of question about, how can we envision somebody this young being, a leader? So, and this is something that we're going to, I guess I can summarize it now. So we gave the simple response that, look, Allah can do whatever He wants. He can grant wisdom and knowledge and these qualities of leadership to anybody that He wants. And He's done it in the past. So for us as Shias, the answer is simple. Well, for the Shias of that time, of course it wouldn't be a difficult thing because they've known the previous Imams, right? Like the 9th and 10th Imam, who were Imams at a young age, right? 8 or 9. So for them, it wasn't that difficult. Although at the time of, let's say, I believe the 9th Imam, that was when some people had difficulty, but after he was tried and tested, then they said, okay, this is definitely the Imam. So it was something sort of new, but it wasn't unheard of in Shia history at that time. So if people had generally followed the other Imams, then this shouldn't have been a difficult issue for them. So yeah, there might have been some people who have doubted it. We can't deny that. But it wasn't something brand new. Remember that historically we said that even the wisdom of the Imams at a young age was recognized by non-Shias as well. Right? Even the Khulafa, the Abbasid Khulafa of that time recognized that these Imams had a great sense of wisdom and knowledge at that young age. The other answer we talked about last week was through the Quran. We talked about Nabi Yahya alayhi salam in the Quran being mentioned that he was given wisdom, hikmah or al-hukm specifically, sabiya, as a young child. So this is even not questionable, or it's something understood among all Muslims who believe in the Quran. And of course, we could have mentioned the fact that Nabi Isa alayhi salam speaking in the cradle, but we're talking about somebody who can at least, speak and has wisdom. So okay, we gave the example of Nabi Yahya. And then we looked at the scientific and the rational understanding. Can somebody that young have that high level of intelligence? And even there we said, yeah, of course it's possible. Even right now, when we take a look at organizations like Mensa, right, which only admit people with a high level of IQ, we say, look, this is going to be, based on a mix of two different things, right? Nature and nurture. And, there's a disagreement in the scientific community about what allows for certain children to become these geniuses and prodigies at a young age. We said, look, it doesn't matter which one you pick because the 12th Imam had both. His whole lineage is full of purified individuals. So the nature is there, right? Those pure genes. If we're just making it a physical thing, the genes are there. Geniuses all throughout his lineage, his ancestors. If it's about nurture, then of course, even though his father had passed away, the 11th Imam passes away when he's only 5, but if his 11th Imam, again, being recognized by everybody else, is a genius and a prodigy, maybe not at a young age, or historically speaking, but he was still at that point where he had 5 years to raise his son to be a genius or a prodigy. Now again, we as Shias don't have this idea of needing to be raised and he doesn't have to read books. That's fine. We're trying to give arguments for people like who might have this question. Didn't people doubt it? Didn't people question it? Is it scientifically, rationally possible? We say absolutely. Whatever framework you take, whatever perspective you want to use, whatever way you doubt it, there's an answer for that, which will still point us to the belief of the Ahlul Tashayyu, the Shias. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So I wanted to recap what we did last week, which pretty much we did in this question. And like I said again, the quiz is, the poll is still up, so if you want to fill it out, and then we'll look at it at the end of the night, inshallah, after our quiz. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different objections, and we've replied to them, right? People have been asking, okay, why does he have this longevity? We answered that question. Is this rationally possible? We answered that. Scientifically possible? We answered that. Why so young? We answered that. Now, somebody may respond, say, okay, fine. We get it. There's a possibility of having a young leader at that age live this long and be ready to lead mankind. We get the probability and the possibility. Okay, fine. But now the thing is this. This is not just about possibilities. You Shias believe that he's alive right now. If you want us, anybody else, whether it's Sunnis or non-Sunnis, right? Christian, Jew, or atheist, if you want us to believe in this, or at least to give some value to your belief, you have to give us some evidence that he exists right now. You have to offer something else. Not just speculation, not just probability, but you have to push us from I'll click. Even if it was 50-50, we may say, okay, fine. But it's not 50-50 yet. It's still just a bunch of ideas you've thrown out, but you haven't actually shown us any real, hard evidence or proof yet. So what we want to do tonight is try to offer proof to somebody who may still be on the fence, may still be in doubt, may still be skeptical, whether they're coming from a Muslim, Islamic standpoint or from an un-Islamic, non-Muslim or irreligious standpoint. We're going to try to address that both ways. Now, a simple way for us to do this would have been at the outset, say, look, about the topic, about the personality of Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalallahu ta'ala faraju sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. If we're going to look at all of the different narrations, all of the ahadith, there are over 6,000 total narrations about the personality of the 12th Imam. Over 6,000. Now, when it comes to us, we make up obviously the majority and the bulk of that. But even among the Ahlul Sunnah, about the personality of Al-Mahdi, they have themselves 400 narrations. And that's why you won't find any person from the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah who denies the existence or the belief in the concept of Al-Mahdi. They won't deny that. Now again, where there's the issue for them is, well, is he going to be born later or is he alive right now? So to us, they'll say, look, do you have any evidence that he is alive right now? So, we talked about before, okay, if we were going to look at some of the shared narrations we mentioned before, I'll mention at least just two of them again. What we want to do is this. It's not just, for us to throw out one or two narrations. That's not enough. Like we said before, if we want to get somebody to come to our understanding, we have to make a good case, right? We have to build that evidence like we're in court. So we say, okay, let's start piecing a few of these things together. The first one we already have, we mentioned from before, right? So in Shia and Sunni books, we have the narration, which is narrated from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. In many different words, but this is one of the ones that's more common in many of the Sunni books. Al-Mahdi min itrati. The Mahdi is from my itra, my family. And then he continues, min walid Fatima. Specifically from the children and the descendants of Fatima. Right? Okay. So this is one style of narration that you see in many different wordings, but it exists within the Sunni books as well. And then you have other ones which give other traits. For example, this one. كيف أنتم إذا نزل ابن مريم عليه السلام فيكم وإمامكم منكم. So they say in this narration, the Prophet was asking the Muslims, how will you act? And it's almost as if it's a future prediction. How will you act, all of you, when the son of Maryam, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, when he descends among you? And he is the Imam among you too. And the Imam is among you. Right, that's the proper translation. The reason I said it the other way is because, unfortunately, some scholars have edited the translation and they actually phrase it like this. Even though the way that it's being phrased in the actual Arabic is that it's Nabi Isa and an Imam that are separate. Some scholars, unfortunately, have tried to combine both and say Nabi Isa is actually the Imam, which, the majority of our scholars, whether Sunni or Shia, of course, don't believe that. They say these are two separate individuals. Al-Mahdi is one, and Nabi Isa is another one who will pray and follow, of course, his Imam, the Mahdi. So the Prophet is asking, right? And we have a lot of other narrations too about the Imam being the leader and Nabi Isa praying behind him. Now, all these general traits are mentioned in both of our books. So about these general traits, there's really no disagreement. But somebody may come from the Ahlul Sunnah and say, look, you are trying to get us to believe that there's a specific individual who was the son of somebody named Hasan al-Askari. That's who you are trying to get us to believe, and that's saying that this person, his son, is the Imam and he's living up until right now. You need to offer us that specific proof. So it's not these general traits that we can find in our books too, right? They would say. We know that the Al-Mahdi is going to be a descendant of Fatima, no problem. And maybe some of them would even add on that, we can understand a bit more about his lineage, which we'll mention in a few minutes. We know that Nabi Isa alayhi salam will pray behind him. We know that he's going to lead mankind to victory. We get all this. But you, Shias, are asking for something very difficult. That you know specifically who this person is. And we want you to show us where is this evidence. So we say, okay. So we're going to try to offer, again, is, from a two-pronged approach, Islamic evidence, meaning in terms of narrations, and then more of a historical probability approach, or call it a common sense approach. So first, let's start off with the Islamic approach. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So now we say, look, the narrations that we've shared from the books of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, okay, that it's from the family of Fatima, we get it. You know, from the Prophet's family, specifically a descendant of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. Okay. There are also, as we mentioned before, in some of their books as well, that it doesn't just say it's the Mahdi is from Rasulullah's family, meaning his Ahlul Bayt. There are some, of course, which add in that it's coming from the descendants of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam. But there are also narrations in both of our books which mention specifically in these gatherings that Rasulullah would point to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and say, look, the Mahdi is from my children, from my Ahlul Bayt, my descendant, and then he points to Bibi Fatima, he's going to be from your descendants, and then he points, and then he's going to be from this child of yours as well. So this is another group of narrations that we need to take into consideration as well. Another piece of the puzzle that we also have to consider is the famous narration of the 12 Khulafa, which exist in the Sunni books as well. Right? And it comes in many different words. I'll just give you just the English, two different styles that it comes in. And I'm sure many of you have heard these before, right? So one narration again from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that Islam will continue to be triumphant until there have been 12 khulafa, all of them from Quraysh. Many narrations like this. There's other versions of this very similar. It says that this amr, meaning Islam, will not end, meaning haqq, truth will not end until it is passed by 12 khulafa. In some narrations it says 12 amirs, right? Amir, like commanders or princes, however you want to translate it. And then again, all of them will be from Quraysh. So now we say, look, we don't want to just grab one or two random narrations here and there. We said we want to build a case, right? That's what a rational person would do. We've already seen that the history of all the prophets is that one after the other, they're always naming a successor. Every single time, right? Whether it's the direct prophet or a disciple that will come after and then lead the way until the next prophet comes. They've always been allowing for that walaya and that guardianship to continue. So we have that in our history, right? Nobody will deny that. Then we're taking a look at what's happening in the time of Rasulullah. In Rasulullah's time, of course, we know that even when he would leave the area, he would leave Medina, he would make sure to appoint somebody, right, in his stead, which would always be Imam Ali alayhi salam, for example, right? So he would always leave somebody in charge too. Okay. Then we have narrations which say that the Mahdi exists. We have narrations which say that the Mahdi will be from the family of Rasulullah, from the Quraysh. We have narrations then that say not just from the Quraysh, not just from Rasulullah's family, but from Bibi Fatima's lineage specifically. Then we add on, not just from Quraysh, not just from Rasulullah's family, not just from Bibi Fatima's descendants, but from Imam Hussein's descendants. Not just that, then we add in the other part of evidence, which says that there's supposed to be 12 khulafa who lead. Ahsantum. No problem. Now, if we're going to build a case and say, look, we have two different styles of arguments here. One style is saying that, look, although we have this number 12 in narrations, we can't point to 12 individuals that have continued since the time of the Prophet. Because, you know, if you go with Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and then let's say you add in Imam Ali, then Imam Hasan, then Muawiyah, you're not going to add up to 12 if you add in all of the Umayyad Khulafa, if you add in the Abbasid Khulafa. Who gets to pick and choose? And even if you look into the commentary of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, many of them are honest. They say, look, we don't know how to interpret this narration. We can't just pick out 12 random people. That's not going to work. So they're very honest with that. Say, okay, no problem. You're not sure? That's okay. Why don't you look at the case that we're building? We are taking the principles of a continual system of guardianship and walaya from all the prophets. The Prophet himself has set the precedent in his lifetime. We can specifically point to 12 individuals who have continued one after another, father, son, father, son. We can point to all of this. And with the 12th one ending in the son of Imam Hasan ibn Ali al-Askari alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. One more salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So look, you don't have to, if you don't want to agree, you don't want to buy into it, no problem. But just take a look. You have two different cases in front of you. All of the puzzle pieces, our case, our evidence seems to fit that. That fits the picture. The other side, there's a lot of loops. There's a lot of gaps. There's a lot of empty spaces. Now, if there's a way you want to offer evidence or a good rational argument to try to fill it in, okay, we're all ears. But so far, we are the only ones who have a very specific story. The individuals that we're following were without a doubt the most knowledgeable and most wise individuals of their time. Nobody would deny that in history. Every single imam that we believe in and follow. They were recognized by the Khulafa, by Orientalists, undeniable. So we have a stronger case, right, if we're trying to be objective about it. And many, you'll see in their books, they'll be honest, they say, look, if you take a look at both cases, right, when you talk about Orientalists who they don't have a say. They don't care, Sunni Shias, if they're right or wrong, right? When you take a look at all these, Muslim academics, they don't care. They have no vested interest in Shia Sunni history, right? Because, many of these academics, Muslims, or people who study and teach Islam in universities, usually Jews or Christians, unfortunately. Many of them sometimes are atheists as well. But what do they say? When you look in their books, they say, look, if you examine the history objectively, in line with the Quranic principles, in line with historical principles, and the facts, in line with traditional Islamic theology, and in line with logic and reasoning, it seems the Shia story adds up a little bit more. And you see that when individuals from the other side, whether they're converts or reverts or somebody who has been, a Muslim since birth, or whatever it is, when they take an honest look at the two different narratives and storylines, one of them makes clear sense, and one of them really leaves you wanting a lot more. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, to summarize there's a point about this figure and character of Al-Mahdi. Everything that we have in our books and in the books of Ahlul Sunnah, we have a very specific shape and a very specific story that fits everything. On the other side, so far to date, haven't been able to come up with a proper story to fit that narrative. Now, they may reply. And this is an objection that some of them do raise. This comes from some Sunni scholars, and this does come from some Orientalists as well. They say, look, maybe all this stuff fits in, but you know why that's the case? It's because the Shias made it up after the fact. Now, anybody, after something takes place, you can go grab little pieces of evidence and then fill in you can say, okay, here's your 12 imams here, and now we've made them all our imams. You can trace that. We can make up a story. And you see that people who are conspiracy theorists, after the fact, they can go back in time and, oh, this is why this happened, right? And try to trace out everything. So you say, look, you Shias have, your scholars, they made this up after the fact, right? Some say in the year 1000, 1100, 2000, whatever. Hundreds of years later, it was something made up. You put it in your books, and that's why all of you believe in it, and nobody back then believed in it. This is some people's objection and contention. And you'll find this among some of the, I don't want to mention names, but famous quote-unquote Orientalists. So what kind of reply can be offered? Say, look, the narrations about the Imam of the time, right, meaning Imam al-Mahdi, we said that it's not just in our books, it's also mentioned in the books of Ahlul Sunnah, even the general principles, right? Okay. Now, we know that it's mentioned in some of their very famous books, right? The Musnad of Ibn Hanbal, in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, the Sunan of Abu Dawood or Abi Dawood, book of Tirmidhi, right? These are some of the famous ones, and other books as well, but let's stick with the famous ones. Now, these individuals who compiled the work during their lifetimes, let's see what was their actual lifespan. When did they live and when did they die? So, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he lived from, and I'm giving you the common era, I don't want to give you the Hijri years because myself, I can't connect with that. So I'm giving you, right, Hijri. Oh, sorry, common era, CE. Ibn Hanbal was born in 780, lived till 855. 780 to 855. Bukhari, 810 to 870. Muslim, 815 to 875. Abu Dawood, 817 to 889. Tirmidhi, 824 to 892. Right? So we have all these. Now I'm giving you let me give you all the death dates in order. 855, 870, 875, 889, and 892. These are when they all passed away, right? And all coming from different parts of the Arab world at that time. Here's the question. When was the 12th Imam, as we allege, when was he born? 868 in the Common Era. So that's after all of these individuals have been born. And even after, at least Ibn Hanbal was alive. After Ibn Hanbal died is when the 12th Imam was born. When did Ghaybat al-Sughra begin? 872. Again, after the life of these individuals. When did Ghaybat al-Kubra begin? 939. So, somebody's trying to tell us that all of this stuff was made up way after the fact, when these individuals who were not even alive during the time of the 12th Imam will have it in their Sunni, in their books. How was that possible? What you're trying to say now is that these scholars like Ibn Hanbal and Bukhari made it up, predicted some future event, and then put it in their books. But it doesn't fit their narrative, it fits our narrative. You're trying to say that this was made up by Shias later on, but it's not just in Shia books, it's in Sunni books, and it's in Sunni books before the lifetime of the 12th Imam. These individuals were alive during the times of the 9th, 10th, and 11th. So where in the world would this information have come from? The only way that this could have happened is if Rasulullah himself had mentioned it and it had been carrying on from generation to generation to generation. So this criticism or this objection that this was something made up hundreds of years later is completely ridiculous. Why? Because the Sunni scholars themselves who have recorded this were alive before the time of the Imam or before the ghaiba even began. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So again, that's a very simple, if somebody just looked into the lives, they would have been able to answer this, right? It's not a difficult thing. Now, that's the Islamic narrative argument. There's a simple historical probability argument, which I'm going to mention very, very quickly. We know that there was a period of ghaibatul sughra. And this was approximately 70 years, right? From 872 CE to 939 CE. In that time, there were 4 nawa'ib, 4 special representatives of the imams, of the 12th Imam, right? First one was Uthman ibn Saiyid al-Amri. Second is his son, Muhammad ibn Uthman ibn Saiyid al-Amri. The third is Hussein ibn Ruh al-Nubakhti. And the fourth is Ali ibn Muhammad as-Sammari, or as-Samari, or Samuri. There's different ways of saying it, but the famous one is Sammari. So four of these individuals, respected individuals in their times, right? They were alive, some of them during the 9th Imam's time, 10th Imam's, and 11th Imam's time. Respected among all different individuals. Some of them had even had positions within the Abbasid government. So you can't just say that these were loved only by Shias. They were respected by the Abbasids as well, so much so that they had positions in the Abbasid government. Now, what is their position? What's their job? The Imam, right, at 5 now, he goes into his ghaibatul sughra. No one except these 4 individuals have direct contact with him, right? So what do? They send him questions, they send the Imam questions, they send him Q&A, they send him problems, and the Imam responds through letters or through verbal responses, whatever it is, and they deliver that back to the public, to the Shias. This ghaibatul sughra lasts 70 years, and then, of course, after the final representative, then that's when the ghaibatul kubra begins, and there are no direct special representatives anymore. Now it goes to the mujtahideen and the maraji'. In these 70 years, don't you think that somebody would have noticed that, hey, these letters that you keep showing us, there's different handwriting, or the style is different, the wording doesn't seem the same, the Arabic is a little weird, there's a paradox here, there's a contradiction here. But no, none of those objections exist anywhere. In fact, we have the opposite, that all of these letters that were written down and sent, same exact handwriting, same style, same language, same eloquence, same wisdom, same principles all throughout 70 years. Now, if somebody is trying to deceive you and mess with you, do you think they can keep this up for 70 years? It's impossible. 70 years, 4 individuals who were respected in the community by both schools of thought, by the Sunnis and the Shias, they can deceive everybody like that? That doesn't make any sense. Most of the time, people who are in the business of scamming, you could figure out their scams in a few minutes. For example, there's I read one story. These scams where sometimes you'll get a phone call or sometimes even a message from Microsoft, right? And they'll tell you that there's a virus on your computer or there's some spyware or malware. We have to clear it out, and you have to download this file, and then we're going to get rid of it. So one individual, he got one of these calls from a Microsoft representative saying that, look, your computer is infected. If you want it to be clean, free of charge, then we can do that for you. The person knew that this was a joke, but he said, you know what, let me play around with this scammer. So he said, okay, what do I have to do? And he played around with them, pretended to download the file and go through all this. He made him wait like 10, 15 minutes to say, oh, the file's still downloading, right, to kind of annoy this scammer. After everything was said and done, the scammer on the phone was like, okay, is the file downloaded? And the person was like, yeah, I downloaded it. Okay. can you open that file? He said, okay, I opened the file. He says, okay. Again, this is a Microsoft representative, apparently, saying that there's a virus on your computer. He says, okay, open the file up. Person said, I'm opening it up. Okay. He said, okay, can you read to me what it says? He says, yes. It said that Linux cannot read this file. Now, only tech people will understand what that joke means. If you don't understand, then it's okay. You can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The joke was, of course, the person was running Linux. He wasn't running Microsoft Windows, but yeah, it's okay. Sometimes we have to throw in a little nerd humor once in a while, right? So the point is this. Most people who are scammers or fraudsters, they don't get away with it for 70 years. They can last maybe a couple years at most. Look at these, people on Wall Street and others who try to scam people. It doesn't last very long, right? Sometimes just a few people on Reddit might be able to pick up on what's going on, and maybe they, start raising, something. Okay. So what we talked about today then is this. If somebody wants to bring up this argument that give us proof that this person exists right now, we say, look, we've taken all the evidence in the Sunni books and the Shia books. All those narrations point to a specific story. The story of the Shias adds up. We can fit in those puzzle pieces. The story from any other faith, any other sect, any other madhab does not add up with all the narrations that are there. We can point to 12 individuals specifically that are descendants of Rasulullah, from the Ahlul Bayt, from the descendants of Fatima, and from the descendants of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajuhum. We answered the objection and said that somebody who says that we made this up, say, look, these narrations are coming from the famous Sunni narrators, scholars of hadith, before the life of the 12th Imam. So how could they have made this up later on? So that objection doesn't work. And speaking about historical probability, we say that for 70 years, how could these individuals have convinced a wide amount of individuals during their time that they represent a person that doesn't exist? How could they have created this scam? So this is a historically improbable idea that this was something that was made up by individuals for some reason. We have 70 years of Shias, of Muslims adhering to this idea. No trace of inconsistency, contradictions, deception, or ill conduct whatsoever, right? And we know that fraudsters, scammers won't last this long. And of course, we see immaculate and a perfect story following with all these ideas. Inshallah, we'll continue next week, or actually next Thursday. We may not have a session on this because I think there might be a different session. The month of Rajab, inshallah, will be most likely starting tomorrow night, and there will be a walada or shahada almost every other day. So I don't know if we're going to have the regular Thursday programs in that sense, but we'll see. When we get a chance, we'll continue this discussion, and perhaps I believe the next subject is talking about the reasons for ghaiba and disappearance, inshallah ta'ala. Please recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Okay, let's take a look again at the poll. Okay, so it still looks like in first place is this virtual game night. Now, since that seems to be what everybody wants to do, although Kahoot night is not too far behind. I mean, we'll try to do both. On some nights, or on a different night, maybe we can do this Kahoot night, but we can try something non-trivia based as well on a Thursday night. So my request is for all of you who are interested and have ideas, let me know, because I've been trying to figure out how, as a community, on a Thursday night setting like this, how can we actually do a community-based game? There aren't too many like that. If it was just like 5 of us, like over Zoom, maybe we could figure it out. But we have people sitting here, right, in person, people who are outside, and people at home. So we need to figure something out about, what would make sense. So what I've looked into so far are games like maybe Pictionary or a version of Codenames or something like that. That may work. But it's going to take a little bit of, tech and media, tinkering. But if anybody has their own suggestions or ideas, feel free to contact me or anybody else on the MC or media team and let us know. For anybody that doesn't know, who doesn't have my WhatsApp number, for example, I'm not going to give it now because I don't want it to go out on YouTube like this, but they can send an email to the Alim account as well, right? And if you can scroll that at some point, that would be nice too. So the Alim account is alim@orlandocenter.org. AALIM@orlandocenter.org. So you're always, feel free to message me to set up any private sessions or anything you want, or again, to respond to this poll to give me ideas. We're always looking for community members to come forward and share whatever ideas they have, right? This idea came from a community member. The idea about Kahoot night came from a community member. So it's when we're working together, right, both ways, that we're able to put these wonderful events and programs together, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, let's move forward with the quiz. Ahsantum, thank you. Okay, so as usual, we have our 4 questions. Okay. So, Assalamu alaikum to everybody. To LOL, Fatima, Yusuf Ali. Yusuf Ali's, I guess. The Jessas, the Baykya Imam, the John Muhammads, both Muzammil and Mujahid. Rockefeller, I don't know if I want to say salam to that. The Kristaps, what would Sayyid Hasan do? Hakeem, Plato, Mr. Beast, Specialist again, Ali Jawad, Jabir, Rais, Bande Khuda. Remember, for whenever we do these quizzes, try to make sure we join before, right? So we don't have to spend too much time in waiting for this. ZHC? ZHC, who could that be? I don't know. Okay, let's, I think, did I say Jabir? I think I said Jabir. Okay, let's get started. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Narrations about Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraju Sharif being a descendant of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam do not appear in Sunni books. True or false? Some 80% of you got it correct, that they do appear in some Sunni books, right? The 12th Imam alayhi salam had how many special representatives, right? 14, 5, 12, or 4? And of course, for everybody, we should recognize that all these numbers are very important, but only one of them corresponds to how many representatives existed during the time of the Ghaibatul Sughra, the minor disappearance or occultation. So 82% of you got it correct, that it was only 4 special representatives. And the names, I'm not going to remind you because it may come up in another quiz, inshallah. The Ghaibatul Sughra lasted how many years? 10, 25, 50, or 70? You know, a lot of you have been saying, you know, you make these Slido questions too hard, make them easier, make them more related to the topic. So, okay, so let me make it a little bit easier tonight, no problem. I'm trying to challenge you, but I guess not everybody likes a challenge, right? So I think most of these we've mentioned tonight, yeah. So we mentioned this tonight, the answer was 70. 70 years, approximately, was how long the minor occultation, Ghaibatul Sughra, lasted. And final question, unrelated, generally, which component of a computer draws the most power? Power supply, processor, hard drive, or video card? So last week we had a question for Star Wars nerds. This time it's for computer techie nerds. So those of you who know your tech stuff, you should know this. Especially those who build computers and those who are gamers. 62% of you got it wrong. The answer is video card. A video card actually draws the most power on a computer. Even I didn't. I would have guessed either power supply or processor, but it's actually a video card, which is really interesting, especially given the video cards that exist right now. So I don't want to say congrats to Rockefeller. I have no respect for Rockefellers at all, but this Rockefeller, good job. You're the only one who got all 4 right, and in 45 seconds. Great job. Hakeem Pluto, not bad, 18 seconds. Specialist in 3rd. What would Sayyid Hasan do? What would Sayyid Hasan do? He wouldn't get 4th place, but nice try. And Austin, Ahsantum. So, Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, we will see you all. Most likely tomorrow night will be the 1st of Rajab, which will also then be our session on commemorating and celebrating the wilada of our 5th Imam, Imam Muhammad ibn Ali al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam. So we hope to see you all then, inshallah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad, wa ala ahli bayti tayyibin tahirin, wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إلهي يذم البلاء وبري الخفاء وانكشف الغطاء وانقطع الرجاء وضاقت الأرض ومنيت السماء وأنت المستعان وإليك المشتكى وإليك المعول في الشدة والرخاء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أولي الأمر الذين فرست علينا طاعتهم وعرفتنا بذلك منزلتهم ففرج عنا بحقهم فرجا عاجلا قريبا كلمه البصر وأقرب يا محمد يا علي يا علي يا محمد. اكفياني فإنكما كافيان وانصراني فإنكما ناصران. يا مولانا يا صاحب الزمان الغوث 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 أدركني 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 الساعة 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 الأجل 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 يا أرحم الراحمين بحق محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام ولي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأسلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبثك من مدلهمات ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين. وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي. وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والأروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا. وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبي بكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتين عملي وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباءه. السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأوداعه. السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الزكي الناصح. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما. فيا ليتني كنتم معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم الإسلام وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوتهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الصابر المجاهر المحامي الناصر، وله الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعة ربه الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل. والحقك الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. السلام عليكم يا شهداء كربلاء جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولانا ابن مولا. السلام عليك يا غريب الغربة. السلطان أبا الحسن مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب الأسر والزمان، سيدي الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسخر الله مخرجك وظهور الأمر ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد أجل فرجك.